Hi, I'm Tom Stevenson, and welcome to Construction Business Management. Today, we're going to look at how to make sales in order to grow your construction-based business. For a lot of people in construction, if you're starting out, how do we get those clients? If you're existing business, how do we get more clients if we want to grow the business? So we'll talk about that and a number of other things in this video. There's a number of videos in this series or this course. If you click the subscribe icon and look under the playlist that says Construction Business Management, you'll see the whole series. Plus, I'll leave some links in the description for you so that you can always click on them in case you want to go back and see the previous ones. I'll give a quick review on some though as we go. So some of the learning objectives we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about basically the various ways that a construction business advertises, some of the pluses, some of the minuses. I'll give you some links to different examples that you can check out for yourself and start thinking about your own construction-based business and how you want to structure it and set it up. How is a marketing plan tied to a construction business or tied to an overall business plan? Helps you to get goals, it helps you to focus, and it helps you to do some background research to determine what's the best time, effort, cost, benefit that you're going to get. We all have limited time. We also have limited budgets. And so we have to look at where are we going to get the biggest benefit when it comes to expanding our business. So we're looking for a credible process for finding, qualifying, and retaining clients. And we'll get into the actual last two bullet points in the next video in much more detail. This video, we're really going to kind of focus in on the marketing tools and the sales and the way that we actually try to get leads to give us a call so that we can follow up on it and actually get clients. So from the previous lectures, in the marketing side, we looked at three models, three business marketing type models. The Marshallian model means that your clients, they really think about things before they purchase. So that means you better give them really good data, information. You better know what you're constructing better than they do. Today, people can look things up very quickly on the internet. They may have good information, they might not have good information. But you need to be able to walk your way, talk your way, and then execute on what you're saying. So those clients are really proactive and do their homework, and they'll have a lot of detailed questions. So if they know more about your construction industry than you do, you're not going to make those sales with that type of client. The Veblennian model we talked about is basically keeping up with the Joneses. You're going to have people that are going to want all the bells and whistles and things. They like the shiny object. They want to stay ahead of their neighbors. That's part and parcel of selling and marketing, understanding what kind of area that particular client fits into. The one that's a Veblennian model is probably not so much the Marshallian model. The Marshallian is more detail and what's this going to give me, what's the cost-benefit analysis. The Veblennian type client, keeping up with the Joneses, they want what they want. The Hobbesian model that I mentioned is more business to business. So that's a little bit different in how we actually go about attracting other businesses. Some of the things we'll talk about today are similar, but there are differences for sure when you're talking about marketing to another business. And in that area too, a big thing that you want to keep in mind is retention of those clients, because repeat clients actually escalate even more in that sector, the value of them. And so we'll look at that. And we also looked at in previous sections the market segment, basically what area are we targeting, who are we targeting. And you talk about marketing online and that sort of thing. Well, you can throw things out online to billions of people, but they won't be interested in it. Can you find the niche that's interested in what you're offering? That's the challenge. So like search engine optimization and being able to have people actually click on your site but be interested in your site. So that means getting the right audience that is interested in what you do. And we did talk about the 4 Ps, which is price, place, promotion, and product. In the previous session as well. What are we offering, and understanding what it is that we're offering, which is based on everything we just discussed. So we went through that, and getting the right mix of these elements is important. But let's jump in. We talked about before, and this I just want to bring up. I'm going to emphasize this a few times in this course. Uh, if we want to increase sales and profit, we need to increase our client base. We need to get more clients. That's one way. There's 4 ways that you can really do it, and you can do a mix of them, of course. They're not mutually exclusive. But do we want to increase the number of clients that we can get? And of course, sales and advertising, particularly advertising and closing on those leads, is a big part of that. If we can have more leads contact us, then there's more opportunities to close on those leads, and that leads to more sales. And as long as we've done the right amount of markup with our profit and overhead covered, then those extra leads are going to lead to our overall profitability. We could raise our prices. We can raise our prices as long as we're adding more value. If there's other people that are adding the same value or targeting the same value and they're at lower cost, then that might be problematic for us. Why would a client want to do work with you instead of somebody else? And if you're adding more value, that would be one of the reasons why they would want to do that. So you might have that opportunity to be able to raise your prices, particularly if you're have repeat business and you have clients that, whatever you've done is just so much better than somebody else. I'm really hesitant to go with somebody else, even if they are cheaper, because it's going to cause me perhaps a lot of stress and aggravation, particularly in the construction sector. Increase the frequency of transactions. We can make more transactions with the clients we have. That's big, right? So if we can find ways to service them more, that would be very fruitful for us. And I gave examples of that in the previous videos. Increase the average size of each transaction. And so that's, we call that upselling. It doesn't mean that you're being dishonest. It just means, you may, if you really understand what the client wants, it may be the opportunity when you're doing something to add something else to it. Because now is probably a lot more, adding more value at less cost than having to come back in a few years and do it. So the aspect of being able to increase the transaction size, being honest, being ethical about it is what I'm focused on, is a good opportunity in the construction sector. Because if you are not honest and ethical about it, well, instead of increasing your client base, you're going to be reducing your client base. This industry doesn't suffer fools too long. People will not do business with you again. And we've mentioned this before, fully 80% of your clients are repeat business. So some of the marketing tools that we can consider, for advertising tools that your firm wishes to use, you can look for the low-cost ones. There's a lot of low-cost stuff in construction that you can market with. Signs can be on a lawn or on a fence that you're doing work on. Every major construction project that you can think of has generally the signs of the GC, the consultants. A lot of subcontractors have their signs on the exterior hoardings of the building. It's free advertising. Now, there may be some municipalities that don't allow it just because they might consider it clutter or too much commercialism, but generally speaking, it is a really good way to go with advertising your business. Very low cost. What's the cost of a sign, and how many can you get printed up? Very, very, very low cost. There's canvassing going door to door. That's really kind of on the low end of things, like people doing driveways, roofs, that sort of thing. You're in the neighborhood, you pay somebody to go around with flyers or maybe knock on doors, especially if you see places that are kind of run down in certain areas, and that's a possibility, right? It takes a lot of legwork. It takes good sales skills at knocking on the doors, and it takes a lot of rejection, to be quite honest with you, but it's definitely done. I had somebody the other day, even in a pandemic, knock on the door. So you get those things going on. Personal letters, often used through the purchase of a database. Well, we all get these kind of things, whether it's in the mail or we get emails addressed. That's why everybody wants your email. Every website you go to, they want to give you something free and they want to send it to you via email. And usually when you're agreeing to that, you're agreeing to get some ongoing solicitation, or you have a way to check out of it, and you should have legally a way to unsubscribe from it. but businesses look at building a database that potential clients. And that can be used in a million different ways that you can, maybe not a million, but hundreds of different ways that you can think of that you can attract people either to your website, to your YouTube channel, to your Instagram page. Like you can build a following, and then you can find out ways of building a email list or a connection database that you can constantly contact your followers. And the truth of the matter is, at that point, they've been interested in whatever information you've been providing online, whether it's YouTube information on how to do something like videos of maybe you've been doing things on your construction projects, or you just want to give background on your construction project of how it's went from beginning to end, tell a story. This can be very interesting when it's done really well and it's marketed to a particular segment. It's been proven to be successful over and over again. Telemarketing, dreaded phone calls. In some sectors, that can lead to sales. I would say very often it leads to frustration on the homeowners myself. But if it wasn't working, they'd never do it. That's kind of one of the things that indicates to that. But there's a lot of telemarketing. Usually it's for little niche areas. Again, I don't see general contractors phoning people, but some sub-trades you may have with that. I would not say that that's a big one in the construction sector. Circulars, brochures delivered door to door, done a lot. There's a lot of, if you live in a house and you're in North America, probably you get these things in your door all the time. Usually it's a little magazine or a little fold-up flyer that's got dozens of different related businesses advertising their wares. And I would say probably a good 60% of them are construction related. So usually, like driveways, general contracting, roofs, plumbing, stone facades, you name it, it's there. Landscaping, all of those things will be typically done that way. They're usually targeted to specific geographic areas. We've talked about in previous videos, how you can target a specific geographic area. You don't want to target the whole state or the whole province or the whole country. That would kind of be very problematic and very, very costly, and you wouldn't be able to do most of the work. So you want to target your geographical areas with those kind of flyers and mailouts. But it usually works well when it's done in a group setting. And it's a lot less costly that way because somebody else is doing all the management of that process. Classified ads, not so much anymore, but definitely online. Different agencies that can do that. There's even almost a number of ones being developed where they will recommend contractors. So you have to pre-qualify with that online entity as a qualified contractor, or certified contractor is another way. That means they've done a background check on you. They make sure that you do quality work, because they're trying to create a brand that if you come to them, they've checked these companies out, so that you're not getting a fly-by-night contractor, whether it's a general contractor or what have you. A big thing in construction is building credibility and building a brand. Everybody is afraid of getting ripped off. So then you got to think about, well, how can I position myself to look like I'm a professional and that we do good work? So everything in your building your brand should be going towards building that sort of view of being a professional in your sector. That's going to allow you to get better pricing on what you're trying to do, cover your overhead, cover your profit, cover your direct costs, and build a really good clientele of people willing to pay for good work and a repeat clientele. So online services, and there's a lot of them. I just threw Yelp in there. There's a lot of different online services, as I was mentioning. And newspapers and magazines, both print and digital. You can look at ways to advertise. And then, but if it's going to be a magazine, you got to, again, look at where would a client potentially look to hire a contractor. So those are some of the things, and you can put yourself in that client's shoes and do some searches yourself and see what comes up. competitors in your industry, in your area that comes up, and what are they doing? And you can make some determinations. I wonder if this is good. I wonder if this isn't so good. And you can also run some pilots to see how it works, and you can check it out. So you don't have to necessarily go all in at once. I put this up. I've talked about this in another course, but basically this company here, they've got all their building permits. These are all legal requirements, notice of project, and they've got the safety aspects. But they also got a picture of the house that they're constructing. They have their contact information there. This is, as I said, part of their legal requirements, regulatory requirements. But you know what? Nobody does it this neatly. Nobody does it so organized. And their site behind the fence, it's like immaculate. It's perfectly clean. It's like really, really good, which is dramatically different than I see with a lot of contractors. So this is one way of advertising for yourself using a different mechanism, right? You can have your nice sign, and they did have their sign on another spot on the fence, but this is also a form of advertising. When people see a clean site, an organized site, they see a sign like this that sort of pops and is differentiated from what you see on the other sites where everything's kind of rotting away and it's not done so well. That can be really attractive to people that are purchasers, potential purchases. So it's trying to set up your brand, looking at it from that perspective. So other, like we talked about some, but radio and television, you'll see some contractors will advertise on radio. Television is usually a bit expensive for construction type business, unless you are doing some promotional, like being interviewed. You've been doing some volunteer work, maybe with a local building association, and you've been contacted. You position yourself as an expert in this area, so when something happens, the media contacts you and wants your opinion. And that's very good. That is really good advertising in public relations, when you can get yourself out there and you're not actually even trying to sell something, but it's your company, your name, and it's putting it in people's heads. And when they need somebody, it's kind of like, oh, remember such and such, especially if you get out there fairly frequently. That's good stuff. Billboards can be, on top of buildings. They can be on the side of highways. They can be in bus shelters. I've seen a lot with construction-based ads in bus shelters. Realty, you see a ton of them, but also construction. We mentioned direct mail, demonstrations at trade shows. Again, trade shows can be really useful. I've got some links coming up. One is Michael Upshell from Pro Built Homes. And I've known Michael for decades. And he built a number of dream homes at the home show in Toronto. If you know about Toronto, I guess the next biggest one probably in North America would be the one in Las Vegas. But it's a huge, huge event, right? Certainly the biggest in Canada. And so they build a dream home. And the dream home has to be built. Well, if you go to his website, which I provide a link for, I'll provide a link for in the description of the different sites coming up on the next slide that you can click on them, because I just checked to make sure they're okay. You go to his website, you'll see that he's got a video of the construction of the dream home. And they did it in 9 days, and it's really a really nice house. And so you're looking at that, and you're thinking, well, if I'm going to hire somebody, this person has everything in order. They're able to produce this in this time at that quality level. Wow, that's something. That's building a lot of confidence. And you think that the home show is going to get, somebody that doesn't know what they're doing to build the dream show? What if it only got half built, right? And then the show opens. The show is when it is. So you talk about somebody that can deliver a project on time. That's a big deal. And so I don't think of any better kind of marketing than something like that. Can everybody do that? I doubt it. But if there's some niche or something that you can do in your particular sector, and you're attuned to that, when you see that opportunity arrive, it may be one that you want to take advantage of, because it may lead to a lot more clients than you will ever imagine as a result. And it also builds your brand and secures your brand as somebody that's mastered this area of construction. Consumer seminars, that can be helpful too. Again, usually you piggyback that on with membership in one of your trade associations. So in construction, there is a lot of different construction associations. If you actually look at my Introduction to Construction course, the playlist, I have later in the course, one of the later videos on associations, construction associations and certifications. And, if you're in the ICI, institutional, commercial, industrial sector, you could look at, so for example, in Toronto, you could look at the Toronto Construction Association, you have the Ontario General Contractors Association, you have the Canadian Construction Association. So in that sector, you've got different levels, and being member of one tends to make you a member of the others. So one is lobbying more municipally, another one's lobbying more provincially, and another is lobbying more nationally on your behalf. But there's all these opportunities to volunteer and to very often conduct seminars and other things. Another one is BUILD in the Toronto area, Building Industry and Land Development Association, and they're basically for the city of Toronto. Then you've got the Ontario Home Builders Association, and then you've got the Canadian Home Builders Association. And in the United States, it's the same deal. You have different local associations, state associations, national associations. And it has to do partly with representation of different levels of government. It also has to do with representing of different members at different sizes and scales. So those can be quite helpful if you get involved with them. And it doesn't, if you're not a GC, say you're a trade partner, they have their own associations too. For example, I do a lot of consulting work with the Mechanical Contractors Association of Toronto. And again, a lot of those contractors, because that really serves their needs and represents their needs. So there is an association guaranteed for whatever business in construction you are. National Kitchen and Bath Association, and I could go on. Sponsoring events. So you see community. So you can think community with these ones. Kids soccer or hockey teams, we've all seen that, where a company name is advertised in their mail outs, and sometimes it's on their shirts or their something that they're wearing that they play. So those are, again, those kind of things. And I mentioned the home show and public relations. So there's a number of examples that I thought I would put the links to, and I'll put the links in the description so you can just click on it. Mattamy Homes, I've used them as a description when we talked about mission, vision, and we talked about core values. So we did their mission and vision, but you can sort of check out their website. And of course, they're selling homes. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to position themselves for specific geographical areas where somebody wants to move, and here's our sites for these areas, and you click on that, and then you find out more about the projects going on and who to contact, and you can take a good look at that. So that's on a big home building scale. ProBuilt is, like I said, Michael Upshall, family-run business, not a huge business, but started very small and has grown into a really good brand in this sector, does high quality work. Sounds like I'm advertising for Michael, but they do great work. And he's been a big supporter of our students over the years, spent a lot of times coming in, talking to classes, etc. So that was always appreciated. So yes, if you click on that, check out their website. And I can remember a lot of times we had lunches and dinners and different things. We were both heavily involved in the Building Industry Land Development Association before, when it was Greater Toronto Home Builders Association as well. And we spent a lot of time in meetings and different things, talking about things. And all those things that we've been talking about with sales. He would talk about, he had this one project, I think it was on Bayview Avenue, if I recall, before, right near the Bridle Path, most expensive place in Toronto, but on Bayview, very busy street. And the client let him keep the sign up for, I think it was a year and a half or something, even after he was finished, ProBuilt Homes. And everybody that drove by, thousands of cars. And in the background, you could see the house that was built looked really great, right? What better advertising than that? Free. Like really, you paid for the sign. So those are examples that you can take advantage of. And as I mentioned, building the dream home. So you can get a sense, if you actually click on that one, it's a good one to check out the video on how that was done in the 9 days, etc. And you sort of get an idea. And that's what I'm pointing out, that it's not like a national company that's working in every province that's got thousands of employees. This started out with somebody that had a trade background and really sort of worked on the business. Talk to Michael, you'll find out a lot of that aspect of not just doing the stuff in the business, which a lot of people do. You got to spend that time also working on the business. Sure, yes, you have to work in the business or you're not doing anything. But if you don't spend that time working on the business, you kind of get stuck in a rut and you can't do those 4 things that we talked about earlier to expand your sales and your profitability. So those are things that you have to think about. W Dominion Roofing. I just thought I'd put a trade contractor that's been around a long time. They've been around doing all kinds of roofing, and you don't survive decade after decade after decade unless you've been doing some things right. I suspect a big part of their business is their track record, their history, their relationship as a business-to-business entity. They do straight to client as well. So we talked about that in a previous video too. You may not want all your clients coming from one particular sector. And Aliston, as I mentioned, a company that another one that I've mentioned through here that for my business that I did a lot of training and development for. You can check out their website, their portfolio, see how they set it up. But also it's interesting too, to build the brand and try to get a good understanding of what the company represents. The CEO, Jeff Smith, he has a blog, and I put the link to the most recent blog, which is just been released. I think it's a pretty good way that he frames these blogs, and a lot of it is basically his take on things, and he's pretty good at articulating that. And so that's the leadership qualities that you see somebody that's really leading a very, very large business nationally and globally in a particular way. And it's a good communication tool, and I think that it's pretty easy to access. And somebody that actually reads that's in that sector, they start thinking, they really got their act together in a lot of ways, the way that they think about things. That particular blog I put because I think it's really interesting, because he's talking about in that the way forward after the pandemic and how things are changing and how things are not changing, and nobody really knows for sure. And the opportunities that are in the space between the spaces, so to speak, kind of the things we're talking about in this particular course. So it's a very interesting one. I would definitely go there and read that blog. So I thought I'd put a little case up too that I was walking a couple of years ago down in I guess it's near Rosedale, and very expensive neighborhood. How these houses maybe don't represent it, but even still, because it's in this neighborhood, they're multi-million dollars. Anyway, so I see this wow one day painting, and I was intrigued because number one, it stands out. So you look at the truck, it really stands out. Again, how much does it cost to get this? And what they do, they laminate whatever onto the truck. There's different methods that they use today. You're not talking a fortune, right? For the type of advertising you're getting. This is literally a driving billboard. This is something you don't want to park in your garage. In fact, I think about this because I live in a certain area, Bayview and Shepherd, Bayview Village area, and on Shepherd, for the longest time, in front of one of the Shane Baghai condominiums, I'd see this truck parked there. Now, this individual probably one of them lives in that condominium, very sort of high-end condominium. They have lots of underground parking, recently built, high ceilings, that sort of thing. And the one I saw didn't have all these big extension ladders. They're probably doing some exterior painting. So it would easily fit in the underground parking. It was never in the underground parking. It was always on Shepherd. Why? Because it's advertising. That's why. In an underground parking, nobody sees it. So also thinking about where you park it is another way of looking at that, especially when you've done it so well that it stands out. Now, the other thing I wanted to bring up is one-day painting. Well, how do we differentiate ourselves? I've never seen that one-day painting. I'm not saying it's not done, or one of you may find it, but that was kind of a neat kind of idea. One-day painting. So how do you do one-day painting? You do one-day painting with better systems. So we talked about goals, we talked about systems, and these are important things, right, for a business to be successful in earlier videos. Well, this is all about systems, but it's also about a competitive advantage. It's also about differentiation in the product that you're offering. So a big part of it is saying that they can do this in one day. They kind of qualify on the site. I think I got it on the next slide, but basically, if it can be done in one day. So there's not saying that every paint job can necessarily be done in one day, just simply because the amount of prep work would be beyond that. But I think they do have it down that if it's, you've got a condominium you want to sell and you want a freshening up on it, they can get in and out in a day, or you got it at your house and you're going away, that you could get it done pretty quickly. So it really is a good starting point. And not only that, it's a franchise. If you go to their actual, if you Google franchise for Well Painting, I think they started in 1970, and they sell franchises for it. So different cities around North America have it. There's somebody that thought, well, how can differently, because I didn't mention franchising before. In some sectors, that can be a possibility if it's a certain type of business that you wanted to try to position yourself for, and you can actually figure a way to franchise it. Another one that I've seen recently too, that I think is mostly in the United States, but I've seen it in Canada recently, which is Paul Davis Contracting. And they specialize in sort of restoration, floods, that sort of thing. But you want to talk about a company that can then expand, like you go in to redo a basement that was flooded. Well, you only have to bring it up to the level because the insurance covers. But then people are, now they're redoing their basement. They want to do a lot more very often because the basement wasn't very good that got damaged. So now they want to redo the whole basement really much better. So the insurance covers, say, 40,000 of the damage. Well, they want to spend another 40 because they want to spend 80,000 or 90,000 on. That's an upselling aspect, and you're giving them what you want. But you had to kind of business to business make relationships with the insurance companies, so they call you, and then you give the pricing, and so you have to figure out all the systems and logistics that's involved in that. And then that leads to being able to do that specific work, and you have to be very quick and be able to go in when a disaster strikes. So that means really having the resources available. So there's a lot of logistics and systems involved in that, but it's an opportunity, and not everybody can do it. So that's another franchise example with that. Yeah. And I think that's a good way of looking at differentiation and how you can also advertise what you do to really sort of stand out. Now, of course, don't say you're one-day painting if you can never paint in a day, right? Don't say you're one-day painting if you can. You want to be able to, and we'll talk about this in the next one, you want to be able to gather testimonials. You want people to be very satisfied. You want them to be a raving fan of your business. And if you get enough raving fans of your business is going to do very, very well over a long period of time. So, and especially in construction, people love if they were treated well in their construction business. I was watching a video on their website that I went to, and just before doing this, of course, I just wanted to be 100% up to date. And it was interesting at the end, one of the franchise, I guess it was, I don't know if it was the originals, I'm going to say it was probably one of the franchise holders, said, oh yeah, at the end of the job, we give the client a cup. It says, Well Painting, and a bouquet of flowers. And it brought back to mind when I was at one of the home building conferences, and we had a senior VP from Harley, and he was talking about how he had his house painted. And the painter afterwards said, well, wasn't it great? Isn't it great? And can you recommend me to a bunch of people? And the VP was like, it was a paint job. I didn't really, I kind of what I expected. There was nothing really to differentiate. And then he brought up that there was a handy person that he had come in a few weeks ago into the house. And I guess he did a wood deck, stairs out the back and a few things. And he said when he finished, he left a thank you card for for giving him the business and a beautiful bouquet of roses. And the deck, he said, it was fine. Like there was nothing wrong. It was good, but it was something different. They weren't expecting it. It was something that they weren't expecting it, right? And he remembers that guy and he refers that guy. So is there something that you can do that's not a big, huge cost, but it's just that little bit extra that can be really, really powerful, because that means that person becomes a raving fan and that person is doing your advertising for you. It's really powerful tool that way. So what's that little thing? What's that little thing that you can do? And do it. So creative ideas and innovation leads to opportunities. When creating a marketing plan, you toss out the idea that it's only a construction business and that there is no way to differentiate yourself, what I was just saying. Start thinking that there's an opportunity hiding in everything. There's something. I also remember another story, and I actually experienced it personally when I was in New York. And I took, at the time, this was pre-Uber. And the taxi drivers, they're kind of abrupt and this sort of thing generally. But I got in this one taxi. It was like immaculate. It was beautifully clean. And the guy had water bottles. The guy had just the service, open the door for you, let you in. What kind of music would you like? And he was just so hospitable. You had to give this person a really good tip, right? Like it was like, normally, I'll give a 15 to 20% tip. This guy had to get more. And I asked him, I said, how you're doing this, how much extra, did somebody show you this, or how did you learn? And he said he had read some things on marketing and that sort of thing, and how does he differentiate himself? And he said he didn't always do that, but he said that it probably, from what he calculated, increased his actual pay over a year with the added tips by about $25,000. Substantial. Not a lot more effort, a few bottles of water. It's not gonna be that big a cost overall. So it was amazing. He said, because he said 99% of people don't even take the bottled water, but just the fact that you have it there, or you offer it, is a powerful thing for these people. So yes, that's something to think about. Not only that, he said that he's got a lot of people, they just call him to pick them up. So he's got, remember we said one of those 4 things that you can do? All right, so basically he gets that service with that client much more often by how he acts. I had the same thing because I was doing so much flying at a certain point for like 5 or 6 years across the country doing my consulting thing, that the limo drivers that take you to the airport, again a little bit pre-Uber, but there was one guy that I got that was really, really good, and I just wanted that guy. And so I just got that when I wanted the airport limo. How do I call Marvin? Speed dial. Boom. Marvin, I've got in 2 weeks, Friday, 6 o'clock. I need a lift. Yeah, no problem. Right? And Marvin would always show up, and it was an enjoyable conversation. So very few people you would do that with. But if you can differentiate yourself, all of a sudden, I'm not the only person. Marvin had like a long list of people that was always calling him. So he wasn't sitting necessarily 3 or 4 hours at the airport in a long line waiting to be brought up. He had already people that he was bringing back and forth. So those are some of the ways that you can differentiate your business. Be surprising, be innovative, and you don't necessarily have to spend a ton of money, as you're seeing. There's different ways of doing it, right? Now, when you get to a certain size and you really want to scale, then there are those things that we mentioned that you may want to consider, right? But at least now you've got that company built to that size, and it's easier to scale up from that point of view. And we'll talk about too, for sure, if you're going to be trying different things, you want to get feedback and you want to find out how people found out about you. So if you get a call, we'll talk about this in the upcoming lecture, you definitely want to ask, oh, how did you find out about me? Oh, we were referred by such and such, or we saw the ad here, or we saw your truck, or we saw the sign on the lawn, we saw it on the sign on the hoarding outside the site. It's good feedback, and you start to keep a record of what leads are the best leads and what leads lead to closings and actual work. So that's some things to think about with regards to how to position yourself and market your business. Everything's starting to tie together, if you see from the first video that we did on this construction business management course. So again, I'll just say, the links are below in the description. Subscribe, look under the playlist Construction Business Management, and you can go back and you can follow through with the various videos so you can see how everything is linking together. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and my name is Tom Stevenson, and I'm wishing you a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.